Hey everybody, welcome to the Get Healthy brand webinar. My name is Dr. Tracey Stroup, and I am the Chief Health and Growth Officer right here at Get Healthy. And today we have an incredible treat for you. We have an expert in our industry here to speak to you for an hour on how to be a better practitioner in your space. Michelle Rogers is a functional health expert, seven-figure CEO, and the founder of The Wealthy Woman. And after revising her own autoimmune and hormonal health challenges, she's transitioned from the brick and mortar care to thriving practice online. And now she mentors women practitioners to create aligned, scalable businesses and support both impact and lifestyle. So, Michelle, I've been kind of watching you online and I love your style and the way that you make this so practical and easy for healthcare professionals. I'm just so grateful you're here today to help our healthcare professionals scale. So, I'm going to let you take it away and
Amazing.
amaze us all. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the intro, Tracy. I'm so excited to be here. We have a ton of stuff to go over today, and I'm really, really excited because this is probably one of the most asked about things, and I'm teaching it in such a way that I've never taught it before. So I'm very, very, very excited. But basically, how to become the obvious choice, the one thing blocking consistent enrollment, and it's not another strategy. So, a quick note about this talk. You probably showed up at wanting to learn how to get consistent clients online, and I'm going to deliver, do not worry, just maybe not in the way that you think. So, after mentoring hundreds of practitioners, I can spot the pattern instantly. The ones who create profitable practices they love are not just good at business. They've figured out something most people completely ignore. So you're in the right place if you are tired of chasing strategies that aren't converting into consistent clients. You have the skills, you have the expertise, but your practice still doesn't feel aligned or sustainable. You're ready to stop comparing yourself to others and build a practice that actually feels good. You know that you're capable of more, but can't figure out why enrollment stays inconsistent. You also want to become the obvious choice in your space instead of just another option to think about. So, what I'm hoping you walk away with from this masterclass is that you will understand exactly why your strategies haven't been converting and what's been missing all along. You're going to feel confident to design your practice in a way, in your way, instead of following someone else's blueprint. You're going to have the clarity on what you need to leave behind to create space for aligned growth. You're going to know how to make decisions that attract ideal clients instead of repelling them. You're going to see what's possible when you stop defaulting to the traditional practice model. You're going to feel energized about building a practice that's sustainable, fulfilling, and profitable. And you're going to be ready to become the obvious choice in your space instead of just another option on the table. So I hope you are excited. Quick intro, quick note about me. I'm Michelle Rogers. Since 2019, I've been helping health practitioners stop chasing misaligned strategies and start building practices that are both profitable and sustainable. Because what is the point of hitting your income goals if you're not living the lifestyle you deeply desire? After over a decade in clinical practice, I know that being great at what you do isn't enough. You need business skills, you need clinical mastery, and maybe one of my favorites, personal alignment. So if you miss one of these, you're either broke, you're ineffective, or you're miserable. So my trifecta framework that we're going to be covering today aims to help practitioners avoid all three of these. Now, what you're going to learn today, the trifecta framework. So, three elements that separate booked out practitioners from those constantly chasing clients and why missing even one of those keeps you stuck. We're going to talk about the alignment inventory. So, how to identify what's actually blocking consistent enrollment and reclaim your power from external validation. We're going to go over the resonance test. It's just a simple decision-making tool that makes you magnetic to ideal clients with real examples from my own practice. We're also going to talk about the plot twist principle. So, how to reframe setbacks so you build momentum instead of burning out. And then why alignment equals effortless enrollment. So, the connection between how your practice feels and how easily clients say yes. Now, let's talk about the problem with the strategy hamster wheel. So I work with two different types of practitioners. The first one, typically just getting started in the online space. You're consuming all the content, the podcasts, the masterclasses, the free trainings, trying to figure out the right way to do this whole online thing, right? Should you niche down? Should you go broad? What offer should you create first? What messaging will actually land with your dream clients? And you're probably paralyzed by all of the options and the conflicting advice that you hear, right? The other practitioners that I work with, they've already started in the online space. You've launched your offers, you've tweaked your messaging a dozen times, maybe you even built a funnel or two. You get a client here and there, but nothing is really consistent, right? You think maybe I need a different niche. Maybe my offer is wrong. Maybe I just need better marketing. And the cycle continues. So, what's really going on here? It's misalignment. So, if you're just starting, you're likely trying to build your practice based on what's worked for someone else. I did this same thing when I was starting out, right? What some experts said was the only way to do it, but it doesn't feel like you. There's a part inside of you that's like, this just doesn't feel right, right? If you've already started, you've already launched, you likely do things that you think you should do, right? We're really good at shoulding on ourselves, following formulas that don't actually fit. And it might feel heavy, it might feel restrictive or sticky. You know, that ick sensation, right? So, in either scenario, both cases, what most practitioners don't realize is that whether you're at the starting line or already running the race, your potential clients can see when something's off. They can feel it, right? Meaning your dream clients can feel that misalignment, even if they can't name it. It's like this subconscious, innate, visceral thing that they may or may not be actually conscious of. So if it's not about finding, so it's just not about finding or fixing your strategy. What are the successful fulfilled practitioners doing differently? They are doing the trifecta framework. So before we dive in, there's an important distinction. So take note. All strategies work. I teach all my practitioners, like everything works. Everything that you hear about, it works, but not all of those strategies work for every practitioner, right? So the funnel that's working for someone else totally works. The messaging framework that practitioners swear by totally works. The niche strategy, the pricing model, the content approach, it all works, just not for everyone. And this is where people get stuck. You see someone crushing it with a particular strategy, you try to replicate it, right? But it doesn't work for you. So you think, I must be doing it wrong. Maybe I'm just not good at this whole online thing or whatever. Something's wrong with me in some way, shape, or form, right? But that strategy might not be aligned with who you are, how you want to work, or the way that you naturally operate. Okay. So this is why the trifecta matters. So because when you understand that all three pieces of the trifecta, you can choose strategies that actually fit you and who you are. Not because someone said that they're the best strategies, but because they're the right strategies for how you're built and what you want to create. Because when you understand all these three pieces, you can choose strategies that actually fit you. I repeated that. Apologies. Okay, so the trifecta framework, here it is. Business plus clinical plus personal alignment. Some of you may know a similar diagram called the Ikigai. If you don't know it, check it out. It's a Japanese philosophical concept that's so cool. But it's this blend, this integration of of what you love, of what you're good at, of what makes you money, right? And all of these things put together makes you the obvious choice, right? You cannot ignore any of them because if you ignore one of them, the whole thing falls apart, like we mentioned, right? Alignment isn't about rejecting strategies, it's about finding and choosing the strategies that work with you instead of against you. So, what happens when one is missing? Maybe you're great at business, but you're not great at the clinical piece. So, you can enroll clients all day, but they don't get results. So, there's no retention, no referrals, and your practice collapses, right? Maybe you're great clinically, but you're not great at business. So, your clients get incredible results, but you have no idea how to market yourself or you avoid it like the plague, right? So, you never make money, you constantly struggle to fill spots. Or maybe you're great at both of those things, but you're ignoring the personal alignment piece. So things might look good on paper, right? But you're feeling empty, you're feeling unfulfilled, you're feeling burnt out, exhausted, depleted, fill in the blank, right? And that energy really repels the clients that you actually want to work with. So, if misalignment is the issue, what's the solution? So, this is where most business trainings fall short, in my opinion. They teach you business strategy, or they teach you clinical skills, or they tell you to work on your mindset, right? But they treat these as separate things. And what I've learned after working with hundreds of practitioners is that sustainable success, the kind where you're actually happy and profitable, requires all of these pieces working together, because clients can feel when you're aligned versus when you're just buying into someone else's version of success. So, the alignment inventory. You might be wondering, right? So now that you understand the trifecta, or you've gotten a glimpse, luckily this is a replay. You can pause, you can rewind, you can revisit, you can take screenshots, right? Let's talk about the practical piece, because knowing the framework is one thing, but actually applying it to your practice is another. So, what I would love for you to do is I want you to do like an honest inventory. And what I mean is being really honest with yourself, not what sounds good, not what you think you're supposed to say, but what is actually true for you. What currently feels heavy, sticky, draining, forced? You might have your own favorite word that you want to put in there in your practice. Like, what doesn't feel good? What feels like friction, right? What feels like really effortful? And what do you want to leave behind if you could, right? And before you say, I don't know, because a lot of practitioners do this, right? A lot of practitioners have these like blinders on, those horses that pull carriages that have these like little shades on the eyes. I feel like a lot of practitioners are like that. And they just like they're just like, I'm just doing my thing and showing up and doing the work and seeing the clients and da 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 da. And they don't allow themselves the space to actually think about this stuff. So I just encourage you to take a pause. Watching the replay, you can feel free to just like pause this video, right? Because if enrollment is inconsistent, or you're feeling burned out, or you're constantly chasing the next strategy, something is likely off. So, some tangible examples of what this could look like for you. Some of these might resonate, some of these might not. So, take what you want, leave the rest. An offer that you created because you thought you should, but you dread delivering it every time. A price point that feels too low, but you're scared to raise it. A niche that you chose because it seemed profitable or promising or whatever. Maybe it's what you did in person or brick and mortar practice, right? But you're not actually passionate about serving those people. The way that you're delivering your services. Maybe you're doing one-on-one when you really want to do group, or vice versa. Or a platform, like a platform that you're showing up on that drains you, right? Instagram Reels, right? Some people hate doing videos or whatever, short form video in general, right? So think about those. And here's some intangible examples of what you might need to let go of, or what's feeling heavy, sticky, draining, etc. Overthinking every single decision to the point of paralysis. Imposter syndrome that keeps you stuck in learning mode instead of actually launching. Fear of leaving your current patient base or client base or in-person practice behind. I've seen so many practitioners have this fear, especially when they're wanting to pivot into the online space. People pleasing or saying yes to things that don't serve you because you don't want to disappoint anyone. Constantly comparing yourselves to what others are doing and feeling like you're behind, right? Comparing your first step to that person's 10th step. We're all guilty of it, right? Fear of failure, so you play it safe and never fully commit. or even fear of success, right? Like, what if it actually works and then you have to show up differently, right? Or people perceive you differently. These are all legitimate. So, again, see what resonates, see what lands, leave the rest. So, the part that's really interesting is as health practitioners, we are constantly teaching our clients, our patients, right? Listen to your body. It's sending you messages, right? Pay attention to the signals, right? We tell them to notice the tension, the fatigue, the gut feelings. We help them interpret what their body's trying to communicate. But are we actually listening to our bodies, right? Because I promise you that your body's telling you when something's off. You might feel it as heaviness in your chest when you think about delivering that offer, dread on Sunday night. Some people call these the Sunday scaries, right? Before the work week starts. That pit in your stomach when you're about to post content that doesn't feel like you. Exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix because it's not physical, it's misalignment. So, why does this matter for getting consistent clients? So, as I mentioned, when you're doing things that you think you should do but feel deeply misaligned with, your potential clients, they can sense it. It shows up as inconsistent messaging because you're not clear on what you actually stand for, right? Your values, your philosophy, your approach, your methodology, right? Sales calls that feel pushy or desperate because you're trying to convince yourself as much as them. Content that falls flat because it's not coming from a genuine, authentic, real place. Hesitation in your voice when you talk about your offers because deep down, you're not fully bought in, right? Potential clients might not consciously know what is off, but they feel it in their body. They feel that disconnect. They feel that yeah, I guess disconnect. Dissonance is the word that I was trying to think of, that dissonance, right? And so they don't enroll, or they say, let me think about it, and they totally ghost you. Or they choose someone else who seems more confident, more clear, more alive. But when you're in alignment, everything shifts. You're magnetic because you're not performing anymore, right? You're fully expressed, you're fully showing up, you're in your body. You're creative because you're energized by what you're doing instead of being drained by it. You're clear in your messaging because you know exactly who you are and what you offer and who it's for. You show up with more confidence that's literally palpable because you trust yourself and your decisions. And that right there is what makes people want to work with you. It's not another funnel. It's not better copy. It's not creating a more accessible offer, right? It's just you stepping into your full alignment. So, white space and the resonance test. So, white space is a non-negotiable. It's probably one of my favorite things and maybe one of the earliest things that I started implementing when I really dove into my online practice because with I noticed without it, and this gets into, knowing yourself and how you operate and all of that kind of stuff. Without it, I knew that I wasn't showing up as fully as I could. And so we've established that you already know what feels aligned and what doesn't, or you're at least open to start tiptoeing around that, feeling into it, experimenting with it, because your body's literally telling you, right, what's in alignment, what's not in alignment. But if that's true, why aren't you listening? Why don't people listen in general? The thing is that you can't make these aligned decisions and create more awareness about around these things when you're always rushing on to the next thing, right? Think about your day. When was the last time that you actually had white space? And when I say white space, some of you might not be familiar with this term, but it's just literally nothing on your calendar, even if it's for 30 minutes or an hour, right? Like I'll put it on my calendar, white space. And I know that I can't be doing work, I can't be scrolling, I can't be posting, I can't be doing any of that stuff. Like it's literally time for me to just sit, reflect, see what comes up, be present with things that might be uncomfortable, right? So it's not this, I have 10 minutes between calls, so I'm going to scroll on Instagram, white space, right? This is genuine, quiet, unstructured is the key word here. Unstructured time where you're not consuming, you're not producing, you're not doing anything, especially not doing anything you think you should be doing, right? And for most of you, I'm guessing it's been a while, maybe a long while since you've had some white space because we have become experts at distraction. The moment we have a moment, any free moment, we fill it, right? Anybody guilty here? So, podcasting, listening to podcasts on your commute, scrolling between clients, background noise while you cook. We're terrified of silence because silence means that we might actually have to feel what we're feeling, might have to face it, right? But from my own experience, the only way to be honest about what you want and what you don't want is to create space to actually sit with it. So, we don't want to think about these things or try to think about these things when we've got, we're like trying to multitask, women especially. We are master multitaskers, right? So we don't want to think about this while we're doing 12 other things. We don't want to try and process it while we're consuming someone else's content. It's just sitting, being still, and listening. And I know it sounds so simple, maybe even too simple, maybe annoyingly simple for some of you. But this is really the piece that so many practitioners are missing. You're looking for that next strategy, right? We've got this like shiny object syndrome, the next framework, the next tactic. We give it like a week. We're like, oh my God, it's not working. Something's wrong, right? When you actually need to have the space to hear yourself. So, the resonance test, your decision making tool. So before saying yes to anything, whether it's creating a new offer, bringing on a new client, doing a collaboration, starting a new strategy, a different way of working altogether, pause and ask yourself, does this feel aligned with the lifestyle that I desire? And this is a big thing, right? A lot of the practitioners that I work with, they fit their lifestyle around their work or around how they practice. But what if we flipped that? What if we could create our online practice, right? Because the point of doing that is to create more freedom, more flexibility, more fulfillment, more financial stability. What if instead we built our practice around the lifestyle that we wanted to live? So I'm going to give you more examples of this, but it's not, does this make logical sense? Right? It's not, is this what so and so did? Like maybe I should do what they're doing. It's not, will this make me look successful? It's just, does this feel aligned? And for some of you, this might take some practice to rewire that, to come back to it, right? You can feel it in your body when you're paying attention. It feels like expansion. It feels like lightness. It feels like excitement mixed with maybe a little bit of nervousness, right? Because growth is scary. Stepping outside of our comfort zone is scary. One of my mentors, I always bring this up, but like some of the best choices that you make, that you say yes to, are scary and exciting. And those are the ones that you want to pay attention to. If it's just scary, maybe not. If it's just exciting, maybe don't do that either. It's this blend of scary and exciting that is the most potent. But underneath it all, it feels like ease. It feels like a release or relief, right? Whereas misalignment can feel like contraction, it can feel like heaviness, it can feel like tightness in your chest, your stomach, your throat. It's that voice that says, I guess I should, or maybe this will work. But it's this dread that's disguised as obligation. And as you guys know, right? Like our bodies don't lie. It can't perform, it can't fake alignment. The problem is that most of us have been overriding this internal compass for so freaking long that we've really stopped trusting it. We've stopped listening, right? So if you feel that heaviness, but you say yes anyway, it's usually because you don't want to disappoint someone, whether it's a client, a colleague, a family member, a friend, right? You're scared of missing an opportunity, right? There's this FOMO that comes up. Well, maybe something else, like, oh, I don't know, everyone else is doing it. So you think you should too, right? The whole comparison thing. You've already invested time or money, so you feel like you have to keep going. Oh, this one kills me, right? This is called the sunk costs, sunk, I think it's called sunk cost something, fallacy. I think that's what it's called. But it's like, well, I've already put in all this time, energy, effort. Might as well just keep trudging along this way instead of giving yourself permission to shift, refine, pivot, or whatever, right? But every time you override this internal compass, you're reinforcing misalignment. You're teaching yourself that your body's signals don't matter, right? That external validation from outside of us, whether that's through money, friends, colleagues, collaborators, the external validation is more important than our internal resonance. And that is what keeps you stuck on that strategy hamster wheel, right? So, micro moments of resonance. This is how to start implementing this. If this seems too big or hard, or oh my gosh, I feel completely disconnected to this internal compass, like I don't even know how to come back to it. Before you commit to anything, pause, ask, listen, and then this is the hard part is to actually honor what you hear. And it might not be what you expect. I could go into a story, but I won't right now for the sake of time. But now, if this whole concept feels too big or overwhelming, here's where I want you to start. I want you to start microscopically small. So most people finally tap into their alignment and then think it needs to be this grand sweeping thing. Like it's like, black and white, but it's not necessarily. They might think like, oh my gosh, I need to blow everything up and I need to start over. Nothing feels aligned. Oh my God, like, ugh. And that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm getting at. Alignment starts with these tiny moments, right? Micro decisions throughout your day that either move you toward what feels good or moves you away from it. And this is how we reconnect to that internal compass. It's like baby steps, right? Think back to how you work with clients or work with patients. Like you're not going to go 0 to 60 in a week, right? You're going to take them step by step by step. So if you're feeling really disconnected, really removed from this inner compass, pay attention. So, for example, wake up on a day that you're not working. Before you grab your phone, before you jump into your to-do list, just pause and ask yourself, what would feel the most satisfying right now? Right? Like, when is the last time that you just like really tapped in, like, ooh, what would feel so good and nourishing and supportive and whatever, right? And maybe it's not right when you wake up, maybe it's in the evening, it could be any time during the day. But what is it? Something that's not productive, not a responsibility, but just simply satisfying or simply nourishing or simply supportive to where you're at or how you're feeling. So, is it sitting outside with your coffee and actually tasting it instead of chugging it while checking email? Is it 5 minutes of breath work or meditation before the day starts? Is it a short walk with your dog where you're actually present instead of mentally planning out your day or your week or your month or your year, like sometimes I catch myself doing, right? These things sound small, maybe even insignificant, but they are really able to compound over time. So you could also say you're working. You just finished a client consult. You have 15 minutes before the next one. What do most practitioners do? Maybe they check their email. Maybe they pop on Instagram real fast. Maybe they jump into the next task real fast, right? What can I get off my to-do list like real quick? But what if instead you ask, like, what would feel really good right now? And again, stepping outside for 2 minutes, a breath of fresh air, right? Maybe it's moving your body, stretching, shaking, right? Maybe it's sitting in silence and just like letting your nervous system reset for a moment. These micro moments of choosing satisfaction over obligation, they end up training you to trust your internal compass again. They remind you that you get to design your day, your work, your life in a way that feels really good, which more people should be paying attention to, right? And the more you practice in these small moments, the easier it becomes to apply to the bigger decisions because you start tapping into like, oh, what does that feel like? Oh, that's what that feels like in my body. Okay, great. Now I know what a yes feels like in my body. Now I know what a no feels like in my body. But this work only works if you're willing to be honest with yourself, right? So, real examples from my own business, my own online practice. So, I decided when I was structuring my online practice that I didn't want to do any client calls before 11 a.m. Like, period. Like I don't consider myself a morning person. I still wake up early when the sun rises, but I just prefer to ease into my day, right? And for years, I forced myself to take early client calls or early appointments because I thought that's what I was supposed to do, right? People wanted to schedule at 8 a.m., right? But the second that I gave myself permission to start later, everything started to shift. I was able to show up and be way more present with my clients, patients at the time, more energized, and just, yeah, better showing up. Another one, asynchronous communication or async communication, right? So this is more for when I transitioned into the online space, but I knew I didn't want to be on back-to-back Zoom calls. Like it's exhausting, right? We already stare at screens for so long, so many hours of the day, right? So things like Telegram work for me because I can respond when I have capacity. This is more so for my one-on-one students now, right? Not when someone else demands my attention. There's a really nice flow. I can check in, I can be present, I can have a time block where I'm jumping on Telegram, leaving voice notes, or writing a text, or whatever that looks like. Right. So that boundary helps to protect my energy and my nervous system, which again leads to me showing up better for my clients. Right. Another one, taking a week off every single month. I know this might sound like ludicrous to you guys, but this is something I actually started doing in my online practice when I started it. And it was terrifying to implement. What if clients need me? What if I lose momentum? Right? What if people forget about me? But what actually happened is that things didn't fall apart, right? I came back more creative, more clear, more energized. And my clients, and this is the beauty about working with clients that actually are a great energetic match for you, like ideal dream clients, is that they respected my boundary because I respected it first. And some of them even started doing it themselves. Like, wow, that sounds amazing, right? And that just looks like I have an unstructured week, right? It doesn't mean I'm completely offline or unplugging, but I just have no calls, like no team calls, no client calls, nothing like that. It's just an unstructured week where I get to be in my flow. And that's incredibly nourishing to me. And it's supportive to how I show up in my business. Outsourcing what I don't like doing. Outsourcing is my favorite, or I guess delegating is my favorite form of self-care, right? I delegate admin tasks, scheduling, tech stuff I'm not good at. But what I don't outsource, because this is always what practitioners want to outsource first, the last thing is your content, right? And the reason I say that is because so many of you haven't actually found your vibe, your voice, your essence, right? That you're able to portray in the online space. And if you haven't found that, then no one else is going to find that for you. You have to find that first. Okay. So the last thing that you should ever delegate, especially if you're just starting. Um, okay. Once you're clear on that, then you can get support, but not before that. Deal? Deal. All right. So let's dive into the plot twist principle. Now, in real life, things don't and won't always go as planned, right? You'll launch something that flops, try a strategy that doesn't work, have a month where enrollment is crickets. And in these moments, you've got two choices, right? You can think that, well, that didn't work. I'm failing. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. Throw up your hands, close the books, quit, whatever, right? Go back to in-person practice, go back to a day job. I don't know. Or you can say, that didn't work. Now I know something that I didn't before, right? Completely different way of interpreting that, a different response where you can actually say, like, great, okay, that didn't work. Now I've got some more information. Now I know that this thing doesn't work, but maybe I could try this thing, or maybe I could refine this a bit, or maybe I see where I was a bit out of alignment and how I was doing that. What if I tried it again, but slightly different, right? So we apply the plot twist principle when we treat setbacks as data instead of evidence that you're doing it wrong. So this doesn't mean bypassing the disappointment, right? I encourage you, feel it, be frustrated, vent to your favorite person, sit with the that sucks, right? For as long as you need, cry some tears, yell if you need to, whatever it is. Feel it, but then when you're ready, ask, okay, what's the lesson here? What do I do now? Or what do I know now? What would I have done differently, or what should I do differently next time? So resonance doesn't come from everything being easy. I think there's a lot of uh, misunderstanding when it comes to resonance. Like, oh, if it's not resonant, or if it is resonance, then it should just like flow and be easy the entire time. That's not necessarily the case. That has not been the case in my experience. It comes from actually doing hard things. It comes from being courageous. It comes from trying, even if you don't know that it's going to work, maybe especially if you don't know it's going to work, right? Every time you do something scary and survive it, you really expand your capacity for more. And as you do the thing, you're going to feel into whether or not it's resonant or not. But you can't figure that out sometimes just by thinking about it, right? Sometimes we actually have to start moving or taking some initial action to actually feel into whether or not something's resonant. So every time that you fail, quote unquote, fail, which I don't think you can fail unless you quit, right? But every time you fail and adjust or refine or pivot, you build more resilience. When you operate from this plot twist energy, treating these setbacks as experiments, celebrating courage, staying curious instead of defeated, you end up showing up differently. You become a different person. You're no longer desperate. You're no longer attached to one specific outcome. You're no longer performing or pretending that you have it all figured out, because no one does, right? Your dream clients want someone who knows how to navigate the struggle and come out stronger. And they can feel that from you. This is what makes you the obvious choice. So, permission granted. These are not rules that you need to follow, right? I don't do that. I'm all about you making your own rules on your own terms, right? These are examples of what happens when you stop doing things because you think you should and start designing your practice around what actually feels good to you. It's okay to pivot. It's okay to shift and evolve. It's okay to leave things behind that no longer serve you, even if they used to, okay? You don't have to keep doing something just because you've always done it. You don't have to stick with a niche because you announced it 6 months ago. You don't have to deliver an offer the same way forever, right? So stop comparing yourselves to what others are doing. Their alignment might look completely different than yours, and that is the point. So what if, stay with me here, what if you could do what you do in the fulfilling, energizing, sustainably satisfying way possible? Not the way that looks impressive on Instagram, not the way that someone else is doing it, the way that actually lights you up. Like, what would that look like? Take the blinders off, right? Resonance leads to you becoming more magnetic. People are drawn to you because you're not performing, you're fully expressed, you're lit up. That energy is contagious. You're happier and more sustainable, right? You're not burning out every few months because you built something that actually works with your energy instead of against it. You have more energy and creativity, right? When you're not constantly fighting that friction, that resentment that comes from doing things that are completely misaligned, you have capacity for innovation, for showing up fully, for being present with your clients, not to mention your family, right? You're in the flow. Things feel easier, not because you're working less hard, but because you're working in alignment. You're receiving instead of forcing. And that energy, that presence, that full body alignment is what makes you the obvious choice. So again, like revisiting the trifecta framework, business skills get you visible, clinical skills get you results, personal alignment makes you magnetic. So, some final thoughts for the next 7 days. Don't change anything major, right? Just notice where you might be overriding that internal compass. Take inventory, sit with those two questions we talked about earlier. What currently feels heavy, sticky, draining in your practice? What do you want to or wish you could leave behind? Be honest with yourself. Don't overthink it. Doesn't have to be perfect. Perfection doesn't exist, right? Just be really, really honest with yourself. Create some white space for this. Even if it's just 5 minutes, you will be amazed at what 5 minutes a day could do. But put your phone in another room if that's your vice or whatever. Sit in silence. Ask yourself, what do I actually want? Not what I think I should want. What do I actually want? And the answers that come in might surprise you. But listen, your body's going to tell you. You just have to slow down enough to hear it. And as you're taking inventory and creating this white space, here's something else to sit with. What if there was a way that your practice could continue supporting your clients even when you're not in the room, right? A way to continue generating revenue that was in full alignment and integrity. From my experience, practitioners living the trifecta aren't only, focused on filling their calendar, right? Getting those consistent clients, but they're also strategically designing their practice so that their work reaches people between sessions, right? You've heard of passive income, right? You've heard of recurring revenue, things of that. So, this is actually why I always introduce my students to the GetHealthy store. So I encourage them to start one themselves as this seamless and simple added revenue stream. And it's not about adding more strategies, right? It's just about building this complete model where the trifecta, the business, the clinical, the personal alignment really extends through how you serve in every way, right? So when those pieces click together, your practice ecosystem feels really more complete, more supportive, more sustainable, right? And again, considering everything that we've covered today, this isn't about blowing up your entire practice and starting over. Don't do that, right? It's about starting to make small aligned choices that compound over time, those micro moments of satisfaction that train you to trust yourself again. Because you can't become the obvious choice to your clients if you're not the obvious choice to yourself first. So, consistent client enrollment isn't a marketing problem, right? It's a self trust problem expressed through misaligned decisions. So, that is what I have for you today. If you are wanting to dive deeper and create an online practice that is fully aligned and get consistent clients along the way, feel free to reach out so we can connect.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I love your direction, and how you really
Hmm.
put it into authenticity and aligning with the right market. And, it's not talked about enough, but I think in a sea of, reels and information, that's kind of the thing that sticks with people. They just want to connect
Mm-hmm.
because we don't connect, right? That we're
Mm-hmm.
in the presence of others well. So, and for those that are listening, I mean, obviously you have your Get Healthy store since you're on this webinar, maybe you're not. You can always establish a free demo if you visit our website and get aligned with Michelle. That way you can really learn how to brand yourself appropriately, not through just marketing tactics, but for what you really want to do in life. I always tell people hire your weakness, kind of like what don't you like to do? Usually that's what you procrastinate at. So I do love it. Thank you so much for being here. And for those that want to connect with Michelle, visit her website, thewealthywoman.co. Her email and Instagram are all here. Don't forget to schedule your demo to get your Get Healthy store. And if you already currently have the store, Michelle runs a group where she can help you with tactics and strategies, not only for your business, but also for your store as well, because you have your own personal store.
Mhm. Exactly. Thank you so much, Tracy. It was a
Ab-
pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you again for being here, guys. We'll catch you next time. Talk soon.